conversation with the titans and tastemakers of the automotive world, powered by Custodian. If you've been enjoying our podcast, please do leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, so we can share the apex with the world. And so to this week's guest. If you ever dipped your toe into the fascinating world of driving simulation and software, you might be familiar with the phenomenally successful Assetto Corsa, one of the most popular and versatile simulators on the market. Marco Massarutto is the co-founder and executive manager of KUNOS Simulazioni, the development studio behind the title, and arguably one of the people responsible for making the digital racetrack as much a part of motorsport and car culture as the real thing. He joins us this week to talk about his life in cars, the work which goes into creating class-leading driving simulators, and what makes a company like KUNOS tick. Marco, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here with you today.
So could you tell us a bit about how you became interested in cars, how you became interested in software, and then how the two came together for you?
Well, long short story. Actually, my dad was a taxi driver, and my brother worked when I was very, very young in a workshop as a mechanic. So I immediately started to be fascinated by this world. Actually, by any kind of vehicle, bikes, cars, boats, whatever that moves. So I always loved the mechanic, the engines, and this kind of things. I'm also part of that generation that saw for the first time the game Pong on the TV, and I was I think 7 years old. And when I recognized that it was possible to interact with our black and white TV, I just went mad because it was something that was mind-blowing to me. So actually, when I started to be a teenager and I still loved cars, racing games were actually the only thing that allowed me to drive something before to get the age to get a driving license. And eventually I brought the two things together. And even when I got the driving license, I didn't lose my passion for video games. So as a secondary school, I studied computer science. And eventually when I was graduated, I started to work in the computer business, but in a different kind of work. And a few games like Grand Prix 2 in 96 and Grand Prix Legends in 98 changed my mind about sim racing, actually. Grand Prix 2 was a game changer to me because for the first time I started to be also addicted about the real Formula 1 and the real motorsport. While with Grand Prix Legends actually was so deep in terms of simulation, in terms of car feeling, and the fashion of the gold era of Formula 1, that actually I felt that I want to be involved in the business. I need to do a job that is in somewhere is related to this world because I love it that much. So step by step, we started to work together, me and Stefano Casillo, that is the other founder of KUNOS Simulazioni. We started to work together at the end of 2004. And we had this relationship that went ahead for more than 17 years.
Wow. So many of our listeners are, old school racers. They own vintage race cars. They, spend a lot of time it's all their time in the physical world. They might not be familiar with the work that goes into recreating a car digitally. So I guess my first question is, how do you transfer a complex physical object like a racing car and a racing track into a computer simulation? How does it work?
Well, I think that in our specific case, the approach we had in the way how we want to simulate cars was dramatically important because when me and Stefano and the other guys that joined us at KUNOS Simulazioni started to work together, the goal to us was not, okay, let's make a racing game. We wanted to create something that could simulate car dynamics at the very best. So before to think about anything else, we started to work on the physics engine. in order not just to try or pretending to copy the car behavior and the handling, but creating a physical engine that was in total respect of the physics law that affect the car behavior, actually. So when we work on a specific car and we start to put data of this car into our physics engine, we don't need to work with magical numbers in order to make the car similar to the real one. Actually, when we put the data of this car into the physics engine, actually the car drives like we expect. And there are some cars that, for example, are very, very iconic. I will not mention the brands or the model itself. But, in some of the cars that we had as posters in our wall when we were young, that was legendary cars. But they are not so great in driving, for example, sometimes because of the lack of power or because the handling was bad. But actually, we reproduced them exactly like they were supposed to be. Sometimes this could be disappointing, but eventually people really appreciate our approach in the way how we simulate cars without lying or just not making some special tricks in order to make a car that is boring to drive an interesting car. So how it works, we need a lot of data. Data about these cars are never enough. So there are two very important aspects. One is about the physics model that is very related to the tire model, because the tire is the only thing that get in touch the car with the ground. So the more the tire model is good, the more you can expect to get the proper feeling from the car. And having as much data as possible about the cars can help us to make it even better in the simulation. So we have a process that is a graphical process, because actually we need to reproduce the car in the visual. But this is very easy. Let me say easy. It's less easy when we work with the classic cars, because CAD data are not available, because there is no any database about this. So we usually use the blueprint or a lot of pictures about the cars. And we are starting also to use the laser scan or the photo scan in order to get the proper measures and shape of these cars. With the model cars, we just receive the CAD data from the car manufacturers, so we can be very, very effective in the way how we work on that. Within the car data, we receive also the technical data about the cars, so the power, the torque, the interacts, and all that kind of things we need to work properly on this data. I have to say that we had our studio for 9 years right inside the racing track of Vallelunga, that is close to Rome. So in 9 years, we had also the chance to develop a very good network with the car manufacturers, with the drivers, with the technical engineers, all these kind of professional figures that can help us to work properly on the car model. So step by step during the years, we also improve the way how we work on the cars. So actually, we get the data, we put the data into our physics model. Sometimes we could have some special things that are typical of a car, like, for example, the Alfa Romeo GTA of the 60s. And there was this rear suspension that was very, very particular. In Italian, it was famous with the name of Slittone. And it was a very special trick that Alfa Romeo created in order to allow the front internal tire to lift during the bends without losing grip or traction or something like this. And I remember that with Assetto Corsa 1, this was not so easy to replicate. But eventually, working Stefano with Aris together, they made it. So sometimes we could have some special car that needs some special attention because of this architecture. But that said, when we work with the car manufacturers and with the tire manufacturers, we can simulate very well the car behavior.
So that's absolutely fascinating. And one thing that comes out of that is this question of realism, because I've read that you get driver feedback, obviously, who driven the real cars, but also there's a certain part of it where maybe too much realism is maybe a bad thing. I don't know if you could kind of let us know what your approach to realism is and what people think it means.
Well, about drivers, I could tell you a lot of stories because we met a lot of them, and actually, we found the really same approach of the real drivers. If you get two drivers in the same team that drive the same cars, the faster will tell you, oh, the car is good enough, it's okay, and I don't get any issue with it. And the slower driver will also always find something that, okay, we got too much oversteer, understeer, and blah, blah, blah. Because the driver is always the best, And we saw the same approach sometimes when people knock our door in the office in Vallelunga and they come there to try the simulator. And the two teammates of the same team, for the faster the car and the simulator was very realistic. For the other, the slower, he said, okay, no, the real car doesn't behave like that, and blah, blah, blah. And eventually, on the real track, the day after, you can see exactly that the same approach. So we usually say that, jokes apart, we usually say that if we have to choose to talk with race engineers and drivers, we usually prefer the race engineers because we say that numbers never lie. And numbers and data are very, very important, while the driving is always subjective. But through the years, especially with Assetto Corsa Competizione, that is a specific simulation dedicated to the GT World Challenge, we had as testers a lot of real drivers. And they helped a lot in order to find, recognize those aspects where it was possible to improve the handling or some details, even in terms of sounds or sound effects that could help the driver to understand better what is happening. So by this point of view, I think that with the Competizione, we created a very close relationships also with the drivers, and we have been able to achieve an even better realism. Also because while in Assetto Corsa 1, you can drive any kind of car from the very old Fiat 500 to the latest Ferrari model, so that you don't have to find a compromise, but you need to work on very different cars, and you can dedicate less time to any specific car or type, because with one car, the car comes with a specific tire set. So eventually, if you have, 50 different models, you could have 50 different kind of tires. In the GT series, we have one compound, and this helped us a lot to be very focused on that compound, and this made the simulation even more effective. I would say that you can't never achieve enough realism, because sometimes realism is, in the mind of people, is connected with difficulty of driving or frustration, while is the opposite is true. I mean, the more the car in the simulation is realistic, the more feeling you can get, because the car can be even more communicative with you in order to let you understand what is happening. And the more the realism is, the more you can actually drive the car in a better way. Troubles come when you don't understand what the car is doing, not when the car and the simulation is very realistic. So, by this point of view, realism is never enough.
Yeah. So you mentioned Assetto Corsa Competizione there, which is as you said, the GT3 series simulator, and it's been, I think, popularly praised for the accuracy of its driving model, the accuracy of the tires by GT3 drivers as well as sim racers. I know that for that piece of software, you used a different engine from Assetto Corsa 1, as in software engine, for anyone who's wondering what I'm referring to. Unreal Engine 4 versus, I think, an in-house engine that you built for the original Assetto Corsa. What were the benefits and downsides of using a different engine for something like ACC versus your original?
Well, about Unreal, we use specifically the visuals, the graphics. While the physics comes straight from a very deep evolution of Assetto Corsa 1, our physics engine. So we kept our physics engine and we moved it to the graphics and game structure of Unreal. I would say that one of the strength point of using Unreal is that after 3 weeks in R&D activity, we were able to have a full grid of cars in Monza on the main straight. I mean, without the physics yet, so the car were not moving. But in 3 weeks, we had a very closer idea about the kind of graphics we could achieve. The VR was already there because it was a function in Unreal that you just have to tick in order to have the VR working, while in Assetto Corsa 1 we had to develop all the support for VR, for example. And the Unreal Engine is designed in order to port the game in different formats like PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and others. So definitely these are the strength points. The weeks are that I would not say that KUNOS Simulazioni is a gaming studio, but is a racing simulation developer studio. So our approach in the way how we produce our software is different than a standard video gaming company. So with Unreal, we had to force Unreal to do what we needed. And this is not the best way Unreal works. Because actually, if you want to work fine with Unreal, you have to face the challenge and the good and the bad that Unreal brings to you. You should avoid to force Unreal to do what you need. So, but this is something that you learn only after you start to work with the engine. It's like a sort of marriage. Once the honeymoon is done, you have to work sometimes very hard in order to make the marriage working. And so we had some struggling in the way how we worked with Unreal. Also because even a real engine is always in development. So when Epic comes with a new version, sometimes the version comes with a lot of new features, but also with some bugs. And there are bugs that can actually broke your software, your game. And since even when we released the game, the 1.0 version, we continue to work to improve it. And this process has run for more than 3 years. And in 3 years, also Real Engine has been improved and updated. And every time Unreal came out with a new version, we had to fight with some of incompatibilities or some things that we believe that, okay, this thing is done. We don't have to worry anymore about this. And the thing was broke again. For example, the latest version of Unreal, that is the one we used for the 1.8 version of Competizione that has been released last week. At the beginning, it broke all the audio system of Competizione.
Nice.
Yeah, that was just a little problem. But eventually, we working with Epic, we figured out what to do. But you need to work with these kind of things. When you work with
it sounds like it sounds like running a racing team. It sounds like constant an update that does something good here and then breaks something else. Yeah,
you can't give anything for granted.
I wanted to ask as well, just again on the technology. I think a crucial element of these simulators that we haven't mentioned yet is, of course, force feedback, the physical sensation of I guess what your front tires are doing and what the car is doing. And most people can only feel that through the wheel that they're using. is that all just the data being transmitted into movement? When you develop these things, do you have to kind of invent some clever ways of transmitting certain sensations that, you would only otherwise feel, I guess, in the car, like through your body?
Well, this is a very interesting question. The force feedback in Assetto Corsa and competizione is very appreciated, but there are just, I think, two lines of code managing the force feedback in our products.
Really?
Yeah, because actually,
oh my God.
The force feedback reads the data and doesn't invent anything. That said, there is another part of the code that actually is designed to transmit some additional information, because usually people that plays with racing simulators do it at home on their seat, even in the simulator. But any simulator, even the motion simulators, can't transmit the G's like the real car can do. So actually, you needed to do something with the software, with the force feedback, that can help you to understand even better what the car is doing. I mean, in a real car, on the steering wheel, sometimes you don't feel the bumps on the track. You can feel the curves, for example, because you get a lot of vibrations. In the high-speed corner, you can feel more resistance from the steering wheel in the real car. All these kind of things. But for example, if you find some bump on the track, you can see a very little vibration, but the steering wheel doesn't do something like this. In the force feedback, in a simulator, in a steering wheel for simulators, actually, the vibrations that you can get by this movement are actually the only thing that you can get from the force feedback, with some exceptions, because there are some very few models that has a vibration engine also in the rim, so that, for example, you can feel the vibrations of the engine, these kind of things. But the main way how a steering wheel for a racing simulator can transmit you the feeling and the sensations are just through this movement. So we need to work in order to make this communicating with the driver, in order to let him understanding if there is a bump or if there is some other effect or things on the track. For example, also with the gravel on the track, that can affect the tire rolling and these kind of things. So, by this point of view, we need to find a compromise. But we usually give the player the option to turn on or off all the additional effects, because some of them they like to feel any kind of information. Some other they just want to get the tire grip on the ground, and that's it. There are some people that prefer to lower. I know that the aliens that are the most fast sim racers, many of them use a very low force feedback because they don't want that the force feedback can interfere with their driving. Some others prefer to get the more power they can get from the force feedback, because they like to struggle in making the bends. So it's very subjective.
Feel like real racing drivers.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about this community, because Assetto Corsa has an incredibly enthusiastic and dedicated community out there on the internet who'd love to develop their own content. There are forums. There's people spend a lot of time, money, and everything else just being engaged with the software. To what extent does that community inspire you, help KUNOS make better products? And do you ever hire any particularly talented people from that fan base?
Well, we have a very good crystal ball in order to, wonder what people ask. But no, jokes apart, I think that with Assetto Corsa 1, we try to collect as many information and feedback from the users in the forums or talking with them. I think that at the time we felt that a game, let me call it game, like Gran Turismo, was totally missing on PC. So Gran Turismo actually at that time inspired us a lot because Assetto Corsa allow you to drive very different kind of cars, so that you can find the car you like. If it's a vintage car, a GT racing car, an historical, a road car, you can find any kind of cars. And at the time, that was 8 years ago, it was not easy to find a product like Assetto Corsa on PC. And in developing it, also in choosing the kind of cars and licenses we wanted to put in the simulation, we talked a lot with the people. The point is that also that sometimes people, they don't know what they really want. Because sometimes you can get a lot of very noisy guys that love to share their feeling, their needs, and what they want. But we have a very silent majority of people that they just play. They read the forums, but they don't interact. They just play. Yeah. And you need to also to understand what they want. So actually, with Assetto Corsa 1, we try to give our vision of what a simulation should be or could be, because even us are sim racers. So we try to make that kind of simulation that us sim racers we would like to play, and eventually it worked. With Competizione, it was a completely different approach, because it was time to have a new Assetto Corsa product. And we needed also to evolve our technology, but Assetto Corsa was still very successful in terms of community, sales, and things like this. So having at the time, that was now 4 years ago, let me say an Assetto Corsa 2, will not be a proper timing for that, because Assetto Corsa 1 was really successful yet, and it still is. So we found that the GT3 series from Blancpain, now Fanatec GT series, was the perfect match for us, because the calendar included many of the most exciting and international circuits, and the best GT racing cars. I mean, Ferrari, Audi, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, and so on. So, but it was a simulation and a product that was much more little than Assetto Corsa 1, that includes almost 180 cars. Because the field, at the moment, we have, I think, something like 40 cars in the GT3, between GT3 and GT4 seasons. But this also helped us a lot to be focused on a specific kind of cars, tracks, tires, like I said before. And eventually it went to success because we went really deeply in the way how we simulated this championship. And we included also some features that were missing in Assetto Corsa, at least not made by modders, like the rain, the night racing, and a specific car setup and things like this. So at the end, people really appreciated also the product. That there was designed to be a sort of spin-off of the first Assetto Corsa, but eventually we went to success as well.
And could you tell us a bit more about KUNOS itself? What do you think in its philosophy or approach has made the company so successful?
Well, I would not never call it company, because we are a team of friends that work together with the same aim. That is the philosophy that drives the way how me and Stefano worked together, because our main goal was just making possible to let me say, to make enough money to not be forced to do other 3 jobs to do the job we love. And for the first 6 years, we struggled to get this goal. It was not possible. So for the first 5 years, me and other guys in the company had more than one job in order to make it possible. But the point was that every single guy that joined the company through the years, and we had this growth that was very slow because we started at the end of 2004 in 4 people. We were 6 in 2011. We were 8 to 10 in 2012. So we had a very little growth. But every guy that joined our team was just welcomed in the family with the same kind of philosophy in order to work together on several aspects. That could be the audio, the physics, the graphics, the user interface, and so on. And I would say that the 95% of components of KUNOS Simulazioni are sim racers. That actually sometimes it can also be a problem because we tend sometimes to think about Assetto Corsa just like a simulation, but it's also a product that must be sold as any other video game on Steam or on the PlayStation Store and so on. So you need also to respect some rules in order to do that, because actually, if you can't sell enough copies, you don't have the money to continue to grow. And this is very important because you can't stay on the same line. You always need to improve. Also because your competitors do the same. But I think that we found through the years the right balance in order to never give up in terms of the simulation value of our product. Instead, we continue to improve it a lot. Actually, the 1.8 version of ACC could be defined more like a sort of Assetto Corsa Competizione 2 rather than a new build for Assetto Corsa Competizione 1.
Wow!
Because this is the way how we like to work. We are also lucky because our publisher 505 Games they really trust in the way how we work. They trust in our approach. Our games are very successful also in terms of sales. So they just let us to work in the way we do. But this is not very common because in other companies, the work and the time we dedicated to the 1.8 version of ACC eventually would generate an Assetto Corsa Competizione 2. But at the moment, this is not the way we like to work. But I have also to say that the community, they really like this approach and they continue to support us very, very well. So until the community will continue to support our approach, we'll continue with this approach.
Yeah, I think it's very easy for people to sometimes expect there's 500 people making this kind of stuff and it's all a massive corporation that can do anything it wants at any time. Whereas the reality is like any kind of anything in motorsport, it's usually a hardcore of really committed people who have to cycle time, money. You have to make sacrifices to do what you really love or produce what you really love. So Marco, we're coming up on time, so I've just got some quick fire questions for you to end. So the first is, what's your favorite racetrack in the world?
North Life. Easy.
Second question. Just next question. Your dream car.
If I had to choose just one, I would say the Ferrari. Actually, the new Ferrari Daytona that has been just unveiled 2 weeks ago, because it's the official resto mode of Ferrari for the Ferrari 330 P4. That is my favorite car ever.
It's beautiful. That is a good answer.
It's beautiful.
Next question. What is your prediction for the next big breakthrough in sim technology, if there is such a thing?
Well, it's a continuing evolution that never stops. I would say that we made, I think, a very good job with the artificial intelligence because it runs on the same physics of the game. So actually, sometimes you can't recognize if you are watching a multiplayer or a single player race. But I think that this is a field where we can this industry can improve even more, I think.
Fantastic. And final question, if Marco Massarutto was not in the simulator or software business, what would he be doing?
This is a very nice question. I could say that, I don't know, I could be still a taxi driver like when I started to work in KUNOS Simulazioni, I don't know. Or I have been also a columnist and a journalist for several magazines in the past. Maybe I could do that. Or at least, or maybe I would like to be Jamiroquai. So, but we have already one, and I'm not a singer. So, but he likes car. He's a very nice guy. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
in the next life, maybe.
In the next life, Marco. Sadly, that's all that we've got time for this week. So that just leaves me to thank you so much for such an interesting interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Apex is powered by Custodian, a new platform for car enthusiasts designed to help you manage your car from anywhere. Using the latest technology, it takes the pain out of ownership and lets you just enjoy the drive, because Custodian will take care of the rest. So if you believe life starts after 6,000 RPM, you need to be on Custodian. Join us now at www.custodian.club to sign up for early access and get ready to enjoy your car like never before.